Hello and welcome to episode 1117 of the Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, December 2nd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I can tell by your voice, maybe not as all right for you. Sounds like you still got a little something going on there. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm still sick, and it's as a smoker, it's harder in the morning. So,
I can imagine, yeah.
and we are recording at 6 a.m. my time.
Yeah, that's the thing. On Fridays, you are up remarkably early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is still dark here, and it is freezing. I mean, legitimately, it is 30 degrees right now, and a balmy 38 in my office at the moment.
Oh my goodness. We're not even that cold right now. It's a little rainy here, kind of nasty. Give me all the weather update on the Bay Area and Austin,
Mm-hmm.
Texas. That's the thing that you guys listen for.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we are in-depth insight.
It's what they need, right? It's what they need. The specific temperature day to day on every Tuesday and Friday coming out of our cities. No, we're going to talk some SPs today, though. And I mentioned, SP preview. It's not quite a preview. We're not doing previews just yet, but you've been working hard on your projections. This project, I think, is your first full undertaking of personal projections, right? Or you've done it previously?
I've done it previously. This will be the first time that I'll actually release it for people. Usually, it's just kind of work I do behind the scenes. I haven't done it the last few years because
I knew it had been a while.
Yeah. But I really wanted to get back to it. I wanted to stop relying so much on other people's projections and do my own. But once I am done with them, and I'm almost done with starting pitchers, it'll be available for one of the levels on the Patreon. So I'll be releasing my ranks on Fangraphs, but it'll be the projections themselves and dollar values pretty much for every format will be available on the Patreon.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. So you've gone through, you've done a lot of work on these. I think there's still some lower tier guys that I had written down. And you're like, no, I haven't done projections on them. Let's not talk about them. But the setup I did was 10 questions about Justin's SP rankings and covering a lot of like mid-tier guys. There's some upper tier as well. But I thought it was a good cross-section of the pitcher pool here where we're not just always talking about the top end, but then we're also not going so deep that people who don't play in 20 team mixers, are the only ones caring about those guys. So let's start with somebody that I've been an avid fan of for many years, but I share some of your concerns. So this isn't so much a, why are you like this? And I'm not, it's more of like, man, I kind of agree with you and I want to hear what you think. Is it health, performance, or I guess a mixture of both that keeps Frankie Montas down? 92nd is where you have him ranked. He's the 57th SP off the board, according to the early market and average draft position. Had a brilliant start to the season with Oakland, gets traded. Everything went wrong. Obviously, people look at his home road splits and they say, well, maybe should have seen this coming. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think the issue was the health that was bothering him. But are you just worried that Frankie Montas can't find health with the Yankees? Or do you also share concerns about the ballpark, even if he is healthy? What's going on there? Because that's a pretty big split from 92 for you and 57 for the market on Montas.
I mean, I think it's a combination of both. One, I think that park does him no favors. While the Oakland Coliseum is one of the best places in baseball to pitch. But I think the health, too, is a really big question mark. We saw him really, really struggle after that trade and really before the trade. And I mean, this guy with a long history of health concerns. Prior to 2021, he had never thrown 100 professional innings at any level. So I mean, he's a guy that I really worry about his long-term health to begin with. We saw the health really start to break down again last season, but he just really struggled not being in the comfy confines of the Coliseum. So I have a really hard time projecting him to go deep into the season in terms of his innings, which, one of the things that kind of, really popped up for me is if guys can't throw a lot of innings, it's going to be really hard for me to rank them high or project them highly. So
understandable. Playing time is king. And, that carries across pitching and hitting, of course. One minor correction on Montas. He did have 100 innings at some minor league levels, but in the majors up
Yeah,
until
sorry. Yeah.
2021, he had not had a 100 inning major league season, kind of that Tyler Glasnow situation. Then he popped 187 in 2021 in the nice breakout season, and he was headed for another great season this year before the injury got to him and really, really derailed him after he was traded from Oakland to New York. So again, I share the concerns, maybe not to the exact same degree, but this is a guy, like I said, I've been a fan of in past years, but I don't know that I can get there. That park change is massive, and you just have to worry about the health so much that I'm not sure. I'm certainly not with the market right now. I don't know if I'm as low as 92, but I'm not all that much higher right now on Frankie Montas.
I was really surprised how low he came out in my projection. So, and he's one of those guys that I might end up moving up in spite of my projections on my ranks. And that's something I'm kind of toying with. How much do I just, run the dollar values on my projections and go, this is what this guy is worth? Or do I say, I know this is what it says is worth, but, I think Montas is another, really good example of this. Like, is he one of those guys that I move up or down because of the injury concerns? Because the projections can't quite 100% weigh in those injury concerns.
Absolutely.
DeGrom's another, like, he came out as the number one pitcher in my projections.
Same.
But it's like, there's a huge level of risk on a guy like DeGrom that isn't necessarily there on a guy like Corbin Burns. And so that's why I have Corbin Burns first, because of the level of, the difference in safety. Montas, I worry. I projected him for 145 innings, which is just about what we saw last year from him. So I feel like that's kind of fair. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he already isn't really a whip asset to begin with, and I worry about his ability to go deep in games and go deep into the season. So I can't project a ton of wins for him. Like, do you really want to draft a guy who's a 2-category pitcher? And I think that becomes the big concern. And it's something I said over and over again with some of these guys who, especially who have whip concerns. We're going to talk about another one here in a little bit, and are on bad teams. So, I think that is kind of a big concern for me. A guy like Patrick Sandoval is another one, right? Like, I thought I really liked Patrick Sandoval coming into the offseason. I drafted him on, I think, my first 2 drafts. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm on the Patrick Sandoval train. And then I went, oh, man, he's in that 6-man rotation in Los Angeles. I don't know how good they're going to be to begin with. That's going to really limit his win potential. And then he's a whip killer. And, like, I was like, can I draft a guy who only gives me 2 categories, especially as high as I've been drafting him? I don't think I can.
It is tough with that Sandoval whip. I've made the comparison a few times, but looks a lot like left-handed Luis Castillo. And if the defense isn't turning those ground balls into outs, it can definitely go sideways there for you. The only thing I don't know is I haven't seen confirmation that they're sticking with the 6-man, and we currently do not have them for that. It's 5-man on roster.
I assume as long as they have Ohtani, they're sticking with 6-man. They want to give him that extra day.
I don't know. I'm going to be eager to see if they stick with it. I think each year they've kind of loosened the reins more and more on him. I think it'd be okay to go to a 5. It would really bump his value too if you're not having to. If you could actually get some 2 starts out of Ohtani, and it might help somebody like a Patrick Sandoval as well. The St. Louis Cardinals, one thing that we know about them, amongst others, is that their infield defense, their overall defense is fantastic, but their infield defense is amazing. 24 outs above average this past year. That was 6 clear of anybody else. The Marlins and Padres were second there. I wonder if you think that the shift might have an inordinate impact on guys like Jordan Montgomery and Miles Mikolas, who are both 24 points higher for you than SP starting pitching ADP. And I look at it now. I also added in 2021. They have 61 outs above average on the infield. 61. Next is the Mets with 39. That's the last 2 years. So they've been great. They also have great defenders, right? That is not just the shift. I'm not citing outs above average to say that's just the shift. But how much will the shift being off possibly hurt these guys? You've given some pretty nice rankings to both Montgomery and Mikolas. Does the shift moving not concern you at all?
I mean, it definitely concerns me. I just don't know how much I'm weighing that in my projections. I mean, it's weighing it a little bit, and you do see it with guys like Logan Webb being considerably lower than at least I thought he was going to be, or at least he was prior to me doing his projection. However, teams are still going to be able to shift. They're just not going to be able to shift as extremely as they have previously, right? They're not going to play like a straight up defense. And Montgomery definitely is a guy who benefited from the shift, but he actually didn't benefit nearly as much as I would have thought he did. It wasn't like an extreme amount. Like his batting average against went from like to I've got it right here. Let's see. Versus the shift. No shift was 288. Versus the shift was 261. So I mean, 27 points is actually pretty good. So
that's Montgomery that had that 27 point difference. Okay.
And I'll look up Mikolas here as well. I think it's really hard to kind of determine because we don't know how teams are now going to play this. Are they still going to shift, but just not? I assume they're still going to shift. They're just not going to, shift is extremely right. They got to keep one guy, or two guys on, that side of the other side of the infield.
You can't put like the second baseman in the short right field, basically.
Yeah. So, teams are pretty smart. I think they're going to figure out. Let's see. Okay, so Mikolas was his batting average was 279 with no shift and 236 with the shift. So another big kind of difference. So maybe I should kind of drop them a little bit, but man, they're just so good, and that defense behind them is so amazing. I think it was easily the best in baseball.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just been so good. And I like both these guys, Mikolas and Montgomery. Montgomery going out to St. Louis was is really great fit for him, getting out of that ballpark. And I maybe foolishly, and I'm probably just getting a little too drunk on the swinging strike rate, but I still see some potential strikeout upside for Montgomery.
Yeah, I do as well. And Mikolas is just a horse.
Yes.
Like I know people, he's one of the ones, like when I did his projection, I was like, oh, like I know this is gonna like look crazy, but
when he's healthy, he's just an innings machine.
He is, and he makes up for the lack of Ks with volume. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna rethink their projections and other big ground ball guy projections, and maybe I should kind of factor that in a little bit more, but I think that people are overblowing the lack of the shift a little bit, and I also don't think we know how to quantify it quite yet.
Yeah, and I understand having some trepidation there and not necessarily knowing exactly how to factor that in, because I don't think I have the answer on that either. I don't know that I'm fully ignoring it, but I also don't want to overdo it, because like you said, they're still going to find creative ways to do things. One of the things that was talked about at the Arizona Fall League was bringing the left fielder over and him playing like the short right field type of thing in certain situations. It just kind of depends. So we'll see. I would say, just as a general rule to anybody, don't overdo it with shift reactions. You see some hitter, some article that projects so-and-so, some lefty to gain 40 points of batting average. Don't take that to the bank. You can bump them up a little bit on the hope that the shift cancellation helps, or the shift modifications help the guy, but don't be like, 40 more points batting average. I know people love Corey Seager for that. Just draft Corey Seager maybe a little bit higher than you would have if you believe in that. Don't move him up to like the second round or something,
Yeah, I just don't think that, like I said, I don't think we know how to quantify this completely.
Not with any certainty.
And good hitters are still going to be able to hit. Bad hitters are still not going to be able to hit. Good pitchers are still going to be able to pitch. Yes, if pitchers do exactly the same thing now with not having a shift, are they going to suffer? Yes, but we assume that organizations are smart enough and pitchers are smart enough to make changes, right? Exactly. And go, okay, I don't have the defense here, so this is how I'm going to pitch this guy now. So
yeah, and there'll probably be some guys who never fully bought into the shift, and they're more comfortable and they pitch better.
Yeah.
So, and the bottom line is, your batted ball distribution, yes, there are patterns, there are, trends, but it's different every year.
Yeah.
So you can't just take an overlay from that's why that's always dangerous. And I've done it too, home run overlays and whatnot. I totally get it. You're trying to get an idea of something, but never take that stuff as Bible, because batted ball distributions change year to year all the time.
Yeah.
Moving on. Let's go to the top of the scale a little bit. What concerns do you have about Dylan Cease compared to the market? Now you have him 19th, top 20 pitcher. That's very nice. He is 6th off the board right now. And this is another one where I'm going to say, this is not me coming at you sideways. I share the concerns. I have him ranked even lower than you right now, but I want to hear your thoughts on Dylan Cease at 19 with the market taking him 6th among starters.
This was a really hard one because I want to like Dylan Cease. I was big on Dylan Cease before the breakout. And so like for me, like to like rank him as low as I am, especially considering what the market is doing and what he did last year, is really, really difficult for me. Because Dylan Cease finished as the 6th starting pitcher. And he's going 6th in the ADP. So you would think like, hey, he's going right where he should be going.
If he fully repeats.
Yeah, if he fully repeats, right? And I wrote up I did an article for this morning, 5 SPs that my ranks or projections hate versus ADP, and Dylan Cease was the first guy I talked about, right?
Did Nick Pollock make you rank him here?
He did not.
Okay, just want to make sure, because you can tell me. If you want to tell me privately, you don't want to put him on blast.
Yeah,
here, I understand.
Nick doesn't care about my ranks nearly as much as I care about his. But and I love Nick, but and I have a lot of same concerns as Nick. My main concern is he is still very much heavily reliant on 2 pitches. And when a guy is heavily reliant on 2 pitches, as another guy who's going high up in the ADP, that I'm way lower on than the market, even though people are, Spencer Strider. When you don't have a feel for one of those pitches on any given day, it makes you really easy to hit, because guys just either sit, they sit on that other pitch, right?
Absolutely.
They kind of.
One thing I will say about Cease, at least he has a true third in that curve, whereas Strider really only has show me. Like it's 5% usage or whatever.
I think it's even less than that. And so I worry about that. Not to mention, as I mentioned before, we were talking about with like Patrick Sandoval, Cease is kind of not a good whip guy.
That's where my big concern comes in.
And so now he is on a good team that I think will win a lot of games. I think the White Sox will rebound. So, but you still, when I'm taking a guy in potentially the 2nd round of a draft, or in the top 10 of starting pitchers, like you have to with Dylan Cease, I want to feel really, really confident that there aren't super major red flags. Like I don't really want injury red flags. I don't want, production red flags. And I feel like with the whip, there's a real production red flag, right? And this is one I could look really silly about coming in, or at the end of 2023, if he does repeat. But it's just a comfortability level. Like, I don't want to feel uncomfortable about my SP1. Like, that is really the one position I really don't want to feel uncomfortable about.
And it's like, I don't even know that if you prefer, maybe I'm just, because I'm also on the same side, maybe I'm just trying to protect us in case it does go south, but or stays really good for him and we're quote unquote wrong on it. I'm not sure I'm going to be feeling any type of way like, oh, I'll eat the L or whatever. I'm not worried about saying that my ranking was wrong if he ends up finishing top 5 or 6 there. But it's so clear how this can go wrong. Dylan Cease had a 260 BABIP. Justin, do you want to guess since 2017, so the last 5 full seasons, obviously not counting 2020 in there, how many seasons there have been of pitchers, or excuse me. Do you want to guess how many pitchers have had multiple seasons of a 260 BABIP or better in at least 150 innings?
Oh, I'm going to guess there's only like 3 or 4.
There's 3.
Yeah.
Justin Verlander's done it 3 times. Jack Flaherty and Max Scherzer have done it twice. There's just very little chance that Cease can repeat at that level. And I know he's very good at, being difficult to square up. He's got nasty stuff. He is somebody that I'm always going to kind of give a little credit to on the BABIP and the hit suppression. I'm not saying he goes all the way up to like 8 hits per 9 or anything, but I mean, he was at 7.6 the year before last, 2021, with a 309 BABIP. It's not that far out to see him regress. In fact, you kind of look at his 21, and I think that is the sobering that you might need. Not you specifically. Again, you're on the lower end with me, but that's the sobering you might need to kind of understand the risk on Dylan Cease. He put up 391, 125 ERA whip combo, and Justin, both his strikeout and walk rates were better in 21 than 22. He actually got worse in both of those, but the hit suppression got so much better and the home run suppression got so much better that he had that brilliant season. What if those regress again? Maybe not all the way back to 2021, but just maybe, they're almost certain to both go up. Definitely the BABIP. I'm betting hard that the BABIP at least goes up to like 280, and that's a 20-point difference. So I'm lower on Cease too.
If you look at like what he did, like in, he split up his first half and second half, he had a almost 300 BABIP in the first half and a 215 BABIP in the second half.
Yeah, he got so nasty for that run there.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't know how sustainable that is. Especially when, like I said, like a guy who really relies heavily on 2 pitches and doesn't have great control to begin with. Like he can walk up, he can lose that control. I worry there are going to be way too many blowups. It didn't happen in 2022. I'm worried it will happen in 2023 unless he starts increasing that third pitch usage. Like I said, this one could go horribly wrong for me, but I just don't want to have those question marks.
2016, by the way, I said 2017, 16, 17, 18, 9. Oh, no, it should have been 17. No, I had it right. 17 was the correct number. But anyway, just so few pitchers having multiple seasons of 260 BABIP. It puts a big burden on Cease to be that good again. I thought the 6th SP off the board was a bit rough, so I was in lockstep with you there. Like I said, I'm even a bit lower on him right now based on where my projections have him. Here's a good way to fold in the most recent news. How do you feel about Zach Eflin now that he's a Ray? You have him 100th among SPs, and 123 is where he's going in the market. Obviously, neither of those have the influence of him now becoming a Ray on a 3-year deal. And by the way, when he declined the mutual team option, his end of it at 15 mil, I thought it was curious because I thought he was a reliever now. That is not the case. And I was quickly, disabused of that notion when I tweeted it out way back when he declined it, that everyone's like, no, he's still going to start. And I was like, okay, if that's the case, then I think he can get a pretty decent deal. And while he didn't match the 15 AAV, he got 13.3 for 3 years. You absolutely take that over 115 all day. So Eflin's going to go be a Ray. Anytime the Rays sign somebody, we're always a little bit extra interested, especially on the pitching end. I think he's somebody who's shown that he can actually go deeper into games. I don't think he's going to be heavily managed on like a 4-inning type of thing. He hasn't shown third time through issues. Can Zach Eflin be a gem for the Rays? And do you believe he will? Are you going to upgrade him in your rankings?
I absolutely will. I was kind of hoping he would sign in a location like this, like just a place with a better home park.
Discussed, and I would have liked that too.
Yeah, better home park, an organization that really knows how to utilize their pitchers. My projection only had him for 125 innings. And so, like, I really feel like I can bump that up just a little bit, at least probably to like 140, something like that. And I really like what he did. He's always a guy that feels like he's on the cusp of a breakout. And maybe now that he's out of Philadelphia, in an organization like the Rays, that he can actually kind of turn that corner and be just a really, really good starting pitcher. So yeah, I'm a big Eflin fan. I really love this move for him. I love it for the Rays. They get this is their Kluber, right? This is their guy that they can
even
say
better though too, because I think they can lean on Eflin a bit.
Oh,
more
and
Kluber.
And that's what I mean. Like, he signed for 3 years, so they don't want to like burn it out the first year. But like, he isn't super expensive, and they can pretty much go, listen, we're going to limit some of our younger guys sometimes, but we're just going to let go. Like, we're going to let you pitch as long as you're healthy and are able to do it. The question becomes, how many innings do we think we're going to get out of him? It has been since 2019 that he has thrown more than 105 innings in a season.
Yeah,
so
but he's 29. They're not going to baby Zach
Yeah.
Eflin. I think he's going to have a real chance to be a consistent 5-6 inning guy if he's pitching the way the Rays believe he can. So I don't have concerns. That's one of the first things that we do think of too. Yes, we get excited when somebody goes to the Rays, but then it's like, are they going to super manage his innings? Again, looking at his career, he doesn't have third time through issues, which is usually the reason that they limit guys. He is pretty much just as good across all three, first, second, and third plate appearances. So I don't think Eflin needs to be overly managed as far as his innings. And that's why I'm going to have some confidence in drafting him as a Ray now. I'm eager to see where the market puts him. Like I said, he's the 123rd SP off the board. If you had to guess right now, how high do you think that's going to raise in the market?
I think he'll move into the top 100. I don't know that he's going to be overly sought after. I mean, he finished the year in the bullpen. I think people are going to have innings concerns. I don't think he is one of those flashy guys where people go, well, look at what he did it this year. Like, he could be coming back to that. Like, he's never really had that breakout season. I think we're all kind of waiting on it. And I think most people tend to, unless the guy is young, I don't think we're talking about him today, but I wrote up Michael Kopech for my article today too, because I'm way lower on him than the market. People are still going like, he's still Michael Kopech, right? We still believe in that prospect pedigree. Zach Eflin doesn't have that anymore. He's 29. So I don't think people are going to be like lining up the door and pushing him up their ranks.
No, I think that's fair with Eflin. And by the way, I was looking at his composite numbers on times faced an opponent through the game. His third time through the last year did jump up, 570 in the second time through, 795 in the third. But for his career, first, second, and third don't have a whole lot of split. I think the Rays are going to look more at the big picture than just last year when he had 57 plate appearances third time through. He's got a deep enough arsenal. I think they've got some plans for him. I'm not worried about him being that 4-inning type of guy consistently. I like Zach Eflin. Did Reid Detmers' summer breakout not sell you? You've got him 79th. The market has him 64th. That's a 15 pitcher split. That's pretty decent. Not as much so at that level. We talk about that a lot. You start to get into the globs of talent. A 15-point split isn't necessarily huge, like you're saying, oh, you hate him and the market loves him, but it's enough to where I'm like curious what you think on him, because after he got sent down and then Detmers came back up, his slider was on another level. He ended up striking out 78 batters in 71 innings from there forward with a 3.04 ERA. I mean, he was awesome upon return. He also had the no-hitter before and showed some flashes, but once that slider came into effect, Detmers was awesome, but you're not quite as sold on him. What's up with Reid Detmers?
I mean, he's the same issue as his teammate Patrick Sandoval. He's kind of a whip killer. Look at his whip in the second half. His whip in the second half is 137. So like, yes, the ERA was great. Did a really good job at suppressing home runs, but he still gives up a lot of hits. He can still walk guys on occasion. And he's on the Angels, who I don't think are a very good team. He's in, I still think it is a 6-man rotation. I think that really limits his win upside. Now he's a 2-category pitcher now. I really want to like him. Like when I was doing his projection, I was all like, Reid Detmers, like, because I was a Reid Detmers hater coming into last year. And I didn't understand all the hype, and like I really enjoyed watching him pitch, but I just can't get past that whip. That especially when he did have the quote unquote breakout in the second half, the whip was really, really bad. And so a guy who's only going to give me 2 categories, I just can't take him where he's going. Like
I'm reluctant to say he's only going to give you 2 categories, right? He had a 137 whip in the second half. You can't just ignore his 107 in the first half, right? Like that was a thing. And that was for more innings.
I didn't project him for 137, but like,
what do you got?
I got him at 123.
Okay, that's not too bad. But I would say it ends up 79th. How many innings?
145.
Damn, only a 16-inning boost.
Like I said, if they come out and they say they're not in a 6-man rotation, then okay. He probably goes up to 160. But in a 6-man rotation, like I have a really hard time giving anybody on that team 150, 160 innings unless they're really, really good. And I think
He is really good.
Detmers has the ability to be really, really good. I don't know that he's there yet. You
mentioned that you don't like the team.
Mm-hmm.
They were awesome before the 14-game losing streak. That has a way of demoralizing a team and kind of ruining a season. They were essentially 400 or 500 from August on. Are we sure they're bad? 6-18 in July did a lot of, and 10-18 in June. A lot of that, including the 14-game losing streak and the subsequent suckiness thereafter. Are we sure they're bad? They've already had one of the more aggressive off seasons. Hopefully they're not done. I don't think that this is a complete team, but I look at this team and I don't see bad. We had questions about shortstop because we don't think Urshela should necessarily be the everyday guy there. So could be a move to be made there. But I mean, I'm looking up and down, they got Renfroe in the 6th spot. That's a pretty good 6-hitter. And the 5 above him, I like too. Renfroe, Trout, Ohtani, Ward, Rendon, Ohtani, Anderson, Sandoval, Suarez, Detmers. That's a 5-pack I really like. Some bullpen I'm not sold on it or anything, but they can build a bullpen on the fly. They've shown they can do that before. Are we sure the Angels are bad?
I'm not sure that they're bad, but I'm definitely not sure that they're good. And I honestly don't know what they are. I know they're not one of the best 2 teams in their division, and I think the Rangers are going to make a run at them this year, especially if the Rangers continue to make starting pitching upgrades, which they've been heavily rumored on all the big name starting pitchers. So I think that they're likely the 4th team in their division, which makes me a little bit worried and tends to make me feel like, no, they're not good. That being said, I mean, they still have 2 generational talents on this team that are in their prime. I'm not I picked the Angels to win the division last year. So
I picked them to win the World Series. So
I was a believer in what I saw on paper, and I want to still believe. So if they're good, I'm not going to be surprised. But I don't think I can project it that way at the moment. And like I said, the 6-man rotation for those rotation guys, until I hear they're actually gonna move to a 5-man, I'm gonna project like they're running a 6-man, and I think that really hurts a lot of their guys.
All right. Well, we'll see. Let's see here. I'm actually finding something. Pardon me for this delay. The Angels are going with 6-man next year, and this is according to Rhett Bollinger at MLB. Mm-hmm. He says they're going with the 6-man.
Yeah, I think as long as they have Ohtani, if they end up moving Ohtani at some point, then I think you could definitely see them go back.
Ohtani.
I don't think that they should, but maybe they should.
They'll get murdered. It's so stupid. Figure it out. You have 2 generational talents, like you said. Figure it the hell out. You absolute dum-dums. Yeah. Are you fully out on Dustin May? This ranking says yes. 93rd for you, 45th in the market. A lot of folks being, buying back in, coming off of the TJ. I have some trepidation because I don't know if he's fully gotten back from TJ. We only got 6 starts, and they were bumpy as you expect from a TJ returner. 4.50 ERA, 117 WHIP. He had the standard, looking good initially, and then boom, blow up out of nowhere. I mean, it's textbook. He dominated Miami twice. San Diego ripped him for 6 runs, 5 walks, and he walked 3 the next game too. So, are we out of the woods with Dustin May? Now he gets an off-season recovery. He's going to be well removed from it, but does he have enough innings for us to say that he's back? And what even is back, because he has all of 144 innings in the majors anyway, and you're probably going to get into that. But what's up with Dustin May? Because you are way off of him compared to the market, which says you're out. Like, you're never getting that price.
Yeah, I am out. And it's this is hard because I like Dustin May from the skills perspective. And what he was doing in 2021 was really, really intriguing, right? Like,
there's only 5 starts, but it looked like he was really putting things together.
Breaking out. Like, he was keeping that high ground ball rate, but increasing the strikeout rate. Like, we
the
went
dream.
From,
dream that we all had.
Yeah, we went from he's like, look at these pitches, he's so givable, but like he pitches too much contact to, okay, now he's getting strikeouts, right? Now he's getting swings and misses with that stuff like that we knew he could. And so this one could look really stupid, but my opening sentence on what I wrote for him for my article today is, who is Dustin May? I don't know who Dustin May is, and that's like that is the problem. And he just has not thrown enough innings. I doubt that they're going to jump him from 30 major league innings to 130 major league innings. And for that reason, like, I have to be out. Like, he's just not going to volume his way. I could look really stupid at the end of this one. Like he has all the talent in the world to be an SP1 in a 15-team league. Like, I think he could be a top 15 pitcher this year if everything goes his way and he's able to throw enough innings. But I can't project that. Like, I can't even come close to projecting that. Like,
that's fair. No, but if you see that kind of upside, should you have him 97? That's some pretty rich upside for Dustin May, for you to think like, okay, so, I see the heights could be very, 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 very high. I understand your trepidation, but if you believe that there is a reasonable chance that he could even be top 20, top 15, shouldn't he be higher than 97?
Absolutely. And he may end
93, excuse me.
He may end up moving up my ranks just on that alone. And I also may decide like, hey, I should bump up his projection a little bit. Because right now I've got him for 110 innings. But that still feels really aggressive. Like, he didn't. We can't forget he finished the year on the IL because of back issue. Mm-hmm. And while he was active for the postseason, he never pitched in it.
Yep.
Like, it's great that he was active. That tells me they were willing to use him and that he was healthy enough to pitch, but he didn't pitch. Yeah. And it wasn't in relation to like, hey, arm soreness, it was a back issue. I don't like back issues at all for anybody. So I'm very, very scared. I project, like I said, projecting for 110 innings, a 118 whip, in ERA of 3.68, and 10 strikeouts per 9.
What was the whip? I'm sorry.
118.
Okay, so yeah, your projection says that you don't hate his guts, but the volume says that's where your concern is, and that's why he's so low.
And like, are the Dodgers, like, if the Dodgers go, the Dodgers want to be a playoff team, and so if they want to have Dustin May available for the playoffs, they're going to have to limit him somewhere, right? They're not going to let him go from 30 innings to 180 innings.
Not a 180, but it depends what they do in the offseason, how much of a luxury they have to manage Dustin May. That's the thing for me, because, right, they don't have the depth right now. Of course, offseason.
There's the Dodgers. They're going to, they're going to add guys.
But they didn't have it this past year. They just really didn't. The Ryan Pepios of the world weren't really giving them that depth that we're used to from the Dodgers. And you look at it right now, they got Kershaw, Rodriguez, Gonsolin, May, Pepio as their 5. They're going to get somebody else. Pepio's not going to be in there. It might be a Verlander, maybe a Rodon, hell, maybe a DeGrom. Like, it's probably going to be a big
maybe
dog.
Bobby Miller is coming up.
I like Bobby Miller. And I didn't put him on here because I understand, I'm not going to grill you on not having a rookie very high, but you had him.
Well, I haven't done his projection either.
Okay, yeah, because he's only at 200 on your ranking.
So a little bit of behind the scenes. If I haven't done their projection, then I use Steamer's projection for the ranks. So there are going to be guys that, like, you had a couple guys on the list before we started recording that I hadn't projected, and so we took them off the list. And
give you a fair shake to I don't want to grill you for something that's not your actual projection on it. I will grill you on this though. Most of these got to be your projection because they're all relatively high here. Why do you hate the Marlins?
Yeah,
except for Trevor Rogers and Sandy Alcantara, who are actually a little bit higher than the market on. Sandy just barely, you have him 3rd. He's 4th off the board. Rogers, you have him 55. He's 61st off the board. But Edward Cabrera, and then more, he's only a small difference. But then Pablo Lopez, Jesus Luzardo, Braxton Garrett, Sixto Sanchez, which I understand. And you might not have done anything with him yet because he's still at 207. But the Lopez, Luzardo, Garrett trio, you are way down on them relative to their market value. Minus 12 spots for Lopez, minus 24 for Luzardo, and minus 43 for Braxton Garrett. You were not sold on Braxton Garrett's little showcase last year.
We're gonna throw Braxton Garrett out because I haven't done his projection. So that's actually Steamer's shitty projection of him.
Yeah, they were not thrilled. Although I will say, looking at it, he's not projected for a rotation spot right now either. Alcantara, Lopez, Luzardo, Cabrera, Rogers.
You gotta think they trade someone. Like it just
have to. You got to get some hitting for a pitcher, right? Like you gotta. I totally agree there. Okay, so we'll throw Garrett off to the side there. You're not. That's not really your ranking. But Luzardo, Lopez, you're still pretty low on relative to the market. Minus 12 for Lopez, minus 24 for Luzardo. What's up with those two?
Luzardo, I think on a per inning basis is can be electric and just be a really, really good pitcher. I had a really hard time kind of giving him a ton more innings. Like I know like we should expect some sort of jump, but he's a guy who's really struggled to stay healthy. This was the first time he's gone over 100 innings at the major league level, and he threw 100.1. He's had a long track record of injuries. In a long track record of inconsistency. The inconsistency wasn't as big of an issue this year. He did a really good job in home run suppression. He actually lowered the walk rate, versus 2021.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main issue for me was, do I expect the whip to stay as sparkling as it was in 2022? And what's the innings? So I projected him for 135 innings, and I think that really hurt his value, especially being on the Marlins. It's hard to project him for double-digit wins, and I didn't.
That's true. That's definitely true.
And one of the things you and I talked about a few days ago, while we were kind of just discussing through some of our projections, is the fact that wins move the needle a ton.
Yes.
And so why do I hate the Marlins? Because I don't think the Marlins are going to be very good. I think that makes sense. If they had a bunch of offense, if they're a team that ends up with a Carlos Correa or and they make a trade, let's say for an
outfielder or something,
or
another
third baseman, then hey, maybe I start going, okay, I can start thinking of them as a team that could win 80 plus games. But at the moment, they've got like 6 good-ish starting pitchers or great to good-ish starting pitchers. They might win 70 games. You start doing that division and you go, oh, relievers are going to win games too. Like there's not enough wins to go around on this Marlins team. And I think that really, really hurts them. Even like Sandy Alcantara, yes, I have him very high in my ranks, but when I just run my straight projection numbers, I don't believe he's a top 10 starting pitcher. Yeah. Even with 215 innings projected, the most I projected in Major League Baseball.
What are the ratios there then?
The ratios on Alcantara, I have him a 101 whip, and a 301 ERA.
How the hell is that not top 10? That's impossible. What do you have him, 2 wins?
I have him for 13 wins. I'll bring up my projection, the calculator right now.
All of those are better than mine. And again, I haven't done as many projections as you, but I've done a lot of top end guys. And Sandy comes out at 7 for me. Yeah. So I'm wondering if something got messed up in the
he might have been. He might have been.
He should still be top 10.
He's probably still top 10, but he wasn't top. I don't believe he was top. Oh no, he was 5th. He was 5th.
He was 5th. Okay. So that makes. I was.
He wasn't. You think a guy who I'm projecting for 215 innings with sparkling ratio,
yes,
would be the number one guy.
Well, and that's because his innings count, right? Not his innings count. Excuse me. His strikeout rate.
His strikeouts and wins. Yeah. I can't project. I have to project more wins for Corbin Burns. I actually didn't project more wins for Garrett Cole necessarily. But is really, really hard. I feel like he should be in consideration for that top overall spot, considering the level of safety. And so I ended up moving him up from 5
up to 3.
up to 3. And I think there is an argument that you should be taking him 2 or even 1.
Yeah.
Just because the level of volume you get from him is so insane, and the level of safety I think is so insane. So, but
I think Alcantara has strikeout upside too. I mean, you talk about nasty stuff. Like, who would be surprised if he added a bunch of Ks?
But if we go back to the original questions, why do I hate the other Marlins?
Mm-hmm.
If you have those level, or if you see those concerns, of them pitching for a bad team, even though it's a great park, with a guy with 0 red flags, like Alcantara really has 0 red flags to me, or no more red flags than any other starting pitcher would have. Like, you really start to worry about the guys you do have red flags with or questions on. I love Pablo Lopez, moving on to Lopez, but his injury history sucks.
He stayed healthy this year.
Yeah,
he gave us a good one, but I understand. I'm not going to say that means he's Mr. Health now. Not by no stretch would I feel that comfortable on Pablo Lopez just based off of 1 year of staying healthy. It was nice to see though.
Yeah, but at the same time, when he did go deep into the season, he really struggled. Like,
he slowed.
He had a 4.97 second half ERA, and a 1.30 WHIP in the second half. Like, it's hard because, like, we finally got the length from him, but as the season went down, he really wear down, and so you got to wonder how much on a bad team, like, is that indicative of he was actually hurt and just pitched through it this time as opposed to going to the IL? Is he just doesn't have the experience that late in the season because he's never really been able to get there? Or is this a sign of something else? And, all those red flags and question marks when I got to, like, temper my expectations a little bit. I want to love Pablo Lopez. I have loved Pablo Lopez in the past. But again, like, as I said, earlier on in this episode, when I'm drafting SP2s, SP3s, even SP4s, I want to feel confident and comfortable with the guys I'm taking, because everything can go wrong in an instant with pitching. We saw this with, like, Lucas Giolito and like right, just guys. Sometimes guys' arms blow up. Sometimes guys just forget how to pitch, and so, like, with all the uncertainty that can happen in starting pitching, I don't want to invite any more onto my rosters, and my projections with these guys kind of say that. As far as Edward Cabrera goes, I don't think I am low on Edward Cabrera. I like Edward. I've already drafted him this year.
No, your differences on him weren't.
So
right. Oh, that's 5 spots. That's nothing.
But I was honestly, you said, like, I was fine on Rodgers. I actually felt like I was like, damn it, I want to like Rodgers again, and I feel like I'm low on him again.
50, 55, and 61 is where he's going in the market, so you're still a little bit above where the market's going on him.
I think that just speaks to how deep starting pitching is this year, because we're talking about a guy who I had as a top 15 starting pitcher coming into last year, and I don't feel like I gave him a bad projection, and he came out 55th. That just tells you how strong the position is.
Yeah, that he could have a lesser projection, or I mean, what you think is good projection, and still Trevor Rogers is only 55th. I am very eager to see how the market treats him, and I do think he's one of those guys that could have a huge spring surge if he's looking like the Trevor Rogers of 21 in spring. Let's move on to another lower tier team, but this one's on the rise. We don't know if they're good yet, but the Baltimore Orioles had a pretty good season this year, 83 and 79. They appear to have the old green arrow next to their name as a team that is coming into their own. To that end, do you think Kyle Bradish is a breakout candidate? You have him 73rd with the market taking him 106. I happen to like Kyle Bradish myself. He's one of those young pitchers that, 4.90 ERA, 140 WHIP. Nobody's getting too excited looking at the composite numbers. But if you dig in a little bit and you see what was going on with him, there were some positives. And he did ruin it a little bit there at the end, a 7 earned run in 2 1/3 at Boston. Hey, thanks a lot for that on my main event team. Really, really helped me get kicked out of the money. Thank you, Kyle Bradish. I'm not holding it against him, though. I do still like him. The funny thing was that was after 8 2/3 scoreless, 10 strikeouts against Houston. He then got blasted like that at Boston. So he was volatile there toward the end, but there was a lot of good in Kyle Bradish this season. It was just that when he was a dud, it was really rough. He had 5 starts of 5+ earned runs. But again, your projections here see a little bit of a breakout. You're much higher than the market. Will you be following that as you're in drafts, maybe putting a little star next to Kyle Bradish saying, hey, I can get a discount here. I like this guy. What do you think of Kyle Bradish?
I like Kyle Bradish quite a bit. And I was a little surprised how much I liked him. I think this really tells you, especially when you start getting outside the top 60 or top 70 starting pitchers, the difference between 70 and 100 is very, very small. Like if I showed you if I showed you my projection for Frankie Montas, who we led off the episode with, and now Kyle Bradish, like back to back, you go, that's virtually the same, but just small tweaks.
Yep.
In innings, in whip, ERA, couple wins here and there.
It is thin.
They really, like I said, the difference between 70 and 110 isn't really that big, even though the numbers seem so big. But I really like what Bradish did in the second half. I think we saw him sequence better. I think we saw him kind of really learn how to pitch. We saw him go deep into games, like 8 2/3 versus Houston. The 10 strikeouts are great. Like, I love seeing the 10 strikeouts in that game. But to me, going that deep against such a strong lineup, to me, tells me a lot more than, he can strike guys out too.
Second time he had done that in a month's time. He went 8 scoreless against them in Houston back in late August, and then did the 8 2/3 at home against them. This is Kyle Bradish we're talking about for Baltimore. So, I agree with you. I think that we saw growth as the season went on. You look at June, it's all sub 5 inning outings because they ran up his pitch count. He had troubles. Then from July 29th on, after he came back from his injury, only 4 times did he go fewer than 5 innings out of 13 starts. So I think we saw some growth from Kyle Bradish on the fly this year, and I really appreciated that development. On the other end, you no longer think that John means business because, yes, he's coming back from TJ, and that is definitely a concern, but he's off your board because of that, it seems, with a 213 or what is it, 206 ranking. You got him way low.
So this is another one I haven't done the projection on. And I told you keep him on the list because he will be super, super low. Okay. Because I don't like guys coming off of Tommy John. I just don't.
Same.
He had Tommy John in I think April or May of 2022
right now.
And I just worry that he is let's see. Yeah, I think April 27th of 2022. So
okay, so you're looking at
usually I want at least 18 months.
Yeah.
But usually even then I'm still not willing to draft a guy. I'll be back in on John Means probably in 2024, but there's no way he ends up on any of my teams.
Same, because I feel like I'm getting a half season at most. Yeah. It's going to be a wobbly half season returning from TJ. So I totally get that. I just wanted you to be able to say your piece on John Means there. Does the schedule change worry you with someone like Brady Singer? You have him 34th. The market has him 55th. Now, I like Brady Singer as well, but we know that the schedule is going to a balanced schedule, which means he's not going to get as much of that AL Central love. And I think I've been seeing some grumblings about that start to crop up here, that these guys in the Central, both Centrals, maybe are going to get hit the hardest because they're not going to get to take advantage of their bad divisions. Now, he doesn't get to face his own team, but he dominated the Tigers, 153 ERA and 17 2/3. He dominated the Twins for 12 2/3, 213 ERA. He was really good against the White Sox, 3 ERA flat in 27 innings. Cleveland did bust up Brady Singer, 6.65 ERA in 21 2/3, but all the rest was really good. Now, he was good against plenty of other teams too. I'm not here to pretend otherwise. He weirdly was beat up a little bit by Oakland, 461, but good ERA against Tampa Bay, Seattle, and then individual starts against other teams. But are you worried about somebody like Brady Singer or anybody else in those Centrals not getting as many games against those weaker teams there? Or is somebody like Singer good enough to where you're seeing him able to establish himself regardless of the competition?
The thing I'm worried about most with Brady Singer is that I love him too much, and that I'm irrational about how good he's going to be. I already had to lower my projection on him once Just because when I went back and kind of relooked at some of the projections on guys who like were crazy high, I had Brady Singer as like I think a top 15 starting pitcher.
Keep it, you coward.
And then so I tempered it a little bit.
No
And then I still, even after I tempered it, he's still a top 30 starting pitcher by my projections, and I ranked him 34th. Like I moved him down. Now some of that was moving guys with like real like big upsides or things like that or track records above him because he doesn't have that big track record. I love Brady Singer. I don't care about like, yes, some people are starting to push back on like the balance schedule. I think we need to stop calling it a balance schedule because I think what that does is give people a false impression of what it is. It is a more balanced schedule.
Correct.
You're still playing your division more than you're playing anybody else.
Exactly.
It went from 19 games against each division opponent to 13 games.
So how that 6?
Yeah, how that breaks down for every individual starting pitcher is going to be different. There are going to be some people who are really hurt by it. And then there are going to be some people that the schedule just ends up lining up perfectly for them. We saw this with like Kenta Maeda a few years ago, where like he got to play every team, I think, in the shortened season in his division. Like it's all he like went up against. Like that's going to happen for certain guys in the Central again. Like, right? It's going to happen for some guys on the Cardinals and for some guys on the Twins or on the White Sox or whatever. We just don't know how that's going to play out yet because we don't know how rotations are going to line up and how, when guys get skipped or guys get moved up, like how that's going to shake out. Like, don't overrate the fact that like pitching in the AL East or the NL East is still going to be harder than pitching in the Centrals. Like it's just still going to be harder because you're still facing those teams more often. Will it be as hard as it's been in the past? No, and you should kind of account for that a little bit, but don't overreach on that.
I totally agree, and it's a great call to say don't call it the balanced schedule, and I will make sure that I'm not doing that either because it is more balanced, but it is not balanced.
Yeah,
just 6 games difference, just losing 2 series, which could certainly hurt. You lose 2 series against Pittsburgh, and if the schedule gods are blessing you, that could be 2 more starts against them. Who knows? But don't go around making a ton of changes. So I agree. You don't need to be moving Brady Singer way down because you're like, oh no, he's not going to play against the Tigers as much. He might still get schedule blessed in those 13 games and get them 3 times. Where does the Sean Manaea bounce back come from? Now, I want to be clear. You're not super aggressive on him compared to the market, but you have him 84 to the 96. I really fell off on Manaea this year. I didn't even really have him anywhere. Sometimes you get burned by somebody and you take it too personally. You're like, I hate this guy. He's a piece of garbage. I don't even have that. It's not coming from any sort of he burned me. I just don't know how to feel good about him. Although I'm looking at his numbers now and I'm like, actually, 16% strikeout minus walk, 12% swinging strike. It's not bad. But he was a home run machine. We've seen home run issues throughout his career. It culminated this year with a 1.7 homer 9 from Manaea, thus a 4.96 ERA and a 1.30 WHIP. Again, I want to be clear. You do not have him super high. 84 is not like, hey, I love this guy. But it is higher than the market at 96. What's up with Sean Manaea? And do you see a bounce back with the Padres? Or, he's a free agent, right?
Yeah, he's a free agent. So, I think a lot of it's going to depend on where he ends up, right?
Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
Like he could if he ends up in a good pitching location where he's pretty much pitched his entire career. Right? He pitched in Oakland, which is a great place to pitch, and then he pitched in San Diego, which is still a pretty good place to pitch. That could really change what his projection looks like. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of suss out in terms of like, hey, I feel really confident with this projection. What I will say is if he was a qualified starter, which I don't think he quite made it there, so what's the qualified limit? So 160.
Yeah, 162.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he had 158. So he was almost there. So had he qualified, he would have had the lowest strand rate in all of baseball. He got unlucky. Some of what happened was deserved, absolutely. But some of it was like extremely just bad luck. Not being able to strand runners at his normal rate. And if you look at kind of some of the underlying numbers, like his xERA was 4.05. Like that's almost a full run different between like what he actually had on his ERA and what he should have probably had on his ERA. Now the homers are a problem, the injuries are a problem, but I feel like everybody feels the same way as you, which is what you said about like this guy burned me, so now I hate him. I feel like everybody's there with him, and I feel like maybe to steal the old Matthew Berry phrase, the hate is gone too far on Sean Manaea. I'm not usually a Sean Manaea guy, but like he's one of those guys. Like, hey, if he doesn't look right early on, he's easy to cut. But there's legit upside. I mean, this guy has been like a top 30-ish starting pitcher before. So like, yeah, if I'm getting in that late, I'll take the gamble.
Okay. I don't think that's out of pocket at all. And like I said, once I pulled up Manaea's numbers, and sometimes you need to do that, right? You have a perception, you pull up and you say, oh wait, that's actually not so bad. The home runs are a problem, but what if he goes back to a home run friendly spot? Not necessarily Oakland, but somewhere that does protect him a little bit more. Maybe then Manaea moves up my rankings. And to be honest, I also haven't gotten down to my projection on him, so I don't know exactly where I stand. Maybe I am closer to you, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on Sean Manaea and these other guys here. 10 questions about Justin's SP rankings. You've done great work here going through all the projections. I know that's a lot of work, like I said, because I'm doing it as well. And we're going by hand. We don't have a system.
I'm not Derek Hardy or Jeff Zimmerman, like where I just like press a number or a button on a spreadsheet and it all populates for you. So
not that they don't put in a ton of work to get.
They absolutely do.
The whole build up to where they can just press a button year after year. There's a shit ton of work in that.
I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'll peel back the curtain a little bit. Is we're gonna have really cool rankings up on the site, and like Jeff's like, I'm ready to go, and I'm like, slow down.
Exactly. Jeff, like chill, Jeff.
Yeah, give me to the end of the year, and then let's start throwing them.
You don't got to be the first one done in class, making us look bad, Jeff.
And so those of you who are on the Patreon that are like, hey, where's the rest of your outfield ranks? I will get there. I promise you. By the end of the year, you will have hopefully full projections on every position that it will continuously update. My ranks will reflect that. Those will be available, live for the Patreon subscribers and stuff like that. But just give me a little bit of time. It's getting sick.
Really sick right now. Yeah.
Yeah, really I would have been done with all of my pitching, including relievers, had I not gotten sick. But I'm hoping to finish that this weekend, start on hitters early next week, and really start hammering these out. So that way, by the end of the year, everybody, when people start doing drafts in January and February, they'll have like full up projections and everything for them.
Yeah, we're busting our butts. And listen, we know the diehards are with us right now anyway, and we're doing what we can to make sure that we got stuff for y'all. Most people start to come back a little bit in January, and then Super Bowl is always that next big wave that comes in. So, but we got you diehards. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. Got plenty of stuff coming. But Justin, you handled the hot seat well here. Second time we've gone through your rankings, another group of guys here. This is even better though, because your first rankings were just kind of your pass through. Now you're putting numbers to things, and it changes so much when you start having to put numbers down saying, hey, I like this guy more than I thought when I put these numbers in, or I don't like him as much as I thought because these are the numbers I see. Patrick Sandoval was a great example of that. That whip runs high. So great work on those. Probably start going through a few other things here. We'll do position previews starting after the new year where we really dive in. Might do some more review stuff, but I always want to make sure that we got something for people to take into next year, right? I like reviewing things, but if we're not bringing anything to the table that they can use for the following year, then we're just kind of running in place. So, Justin, go get some rest or feel better. Actually, I think you got to go to work.
But I got to go to work. Unfortunately.
Hopefully you start to feel better. And are you doing something on Sunday with Justin or Jason?
I would like to. I will message him. I getting sick kind of threw wrench in my plans this last weekend.
If you're still sick, you should probably just take off. But otherwise, I will talk to you on Tuesday, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Actually, we're going to start recording on Mondays.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We are changing. So, we're going to Mondays.
For those of you who are Patreon subscribers, you can watch live in, I throw a link into the Discord. So if you're part of that 420 tier, you can watch it. So we'll start recording. It'll be 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Mondays, moving forward for a little while at least.
Yes, so 3 my time. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I did have it in my phone though, so I wouldn't have
There you
forgotten.
go.
Anyway, Justin, have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.